So today I wanted to talk about Steam Frame and the expectations of Steam Frame when it comes to what this headset can do in terms of gaming. And the reason this has happened is because this morning I found out that there's been a message in the Blade and Sorcery Discord regarding Blade and Sorcery and Steam Frame. Hello, Blade and Sorcery has been around for a long time now. The PCVR version of our game, Blade and Sorcery, is unfortunately a bit too heavy to run standalone on the frame, and you'll see it as unsupported so people don't get confused or disappointed. It's better for us to be transparent about its performance, even turning graphics down and lowering the settings. It's just a bit too heavy to run via Proton FX. However, streaming from PC to the frame works great. I was instantly confused when I read this, because why would anyone expect the PCVR version, Blade and Sorcery, to work natively on the Steam Frame? It will work, it just won't work well, which means no one's going to want to play it. To me, that is just obvious. If you didn't watch my early hands-on video, which must be 3 months old now with Steam Frame, I did tell you that I played Half-Life Alyx, which is probably one of the most well-optimized games in VR natively on Steam Frame. And with all the settings on low, I think I managed around 45 frames, something like that. And as I said before, it was staggering to see Half-Life Alyx running standalone on a headset. It is like, wow. I didn't actually think this would be possible. But at the same time, it's kind of such a bad experience that there's no way I'd come up to you and say, guys, listen, I played Half-Life Alyx on Steam Frame. It was amazing. So going through the comments today, the first thing that happened was people basically saying, well, Steam Frame's dead. And I'm like, what is going on? This is almost like the flip of the Steam machine, you know? Pre-Steam machine, everyone was like, yeah, Steam machine, can't wait for it. Admittedly, there was some bad marketing from Valve saying something like, you'll be able to play your games at 4K, which I think they soon removed. But still, I don't know where the expectations of Steam Frame have come from. Like, who is out there saying that Steam Frame will be able to play high-end PCVR games natively? That is not what this headset's about. What I would expect, from this is that you would get the Blade and Sorcery Nomad. You would get the Quest version to run on Steam Frame, and then the developers would hopefully make better use and get better performance by using the eye tracking with the dynamic foveated rendering, the better chipset, the more RAM. Apparently everyone's telling me it's expensive to do the port. It probably is, but at the end of the day, that is what other developers are doing. They are bringing Quest standalone versions to Steam Frame. Now you can play PCVR games on this headset, but those PCVR games are not going to be high-end looking games. They're not going to be the best games. They're going to be pretty simple looking games. You know, I wouldn't expect for you to install Boneworks directly on Steam Frame and run it at anything I would say is impressive. They're basically telling you that it says unsupported because it runs so bad. That is really good. This is a good sign that on the Steam Frame store, if you haven't got a PC and you're cruising the Steam Frame store and you're looking at PCVR games, unsupported will show up. So maybe there will be some PCVR games that are supported. And while we're on the subject, there is one game that I'm personally looking forward to checking out again, is Pavlov. Pavlov Shack has now been confirmed as coming to Steam Frame. Pavlov Shack, in case you don't know, is the Quest version or the mobile version of Pavlov. That here is a perfect example of what I expect is going to be the future of Steam Frame. But if you have a PC, you can play Pavlov via PC and play the PCVR version, or you'll be able to download Pavlov Shack for free, might I add, according to what I've read today, if you own Pavlov on Steam already. So if you own Pavlov on Steam, you can get Pavlov Shack on Steam Frame for free. It's going to be the mobile port. It's going to be the Quest version ported to Steam Frame. And I think that's primarily what you're going to see. You're going to see very few Steam games actually get the verified markings on the store to say, yes, this works natively on Steam Frame if you install it directly on the headset. If, for example, there is a PCVR game that will work directly with Steam Frame, natively on Steam Frame, it will get a verified badge. That means it runs at 72 FPS. That's, I think, the minimum criteria, that they need to hit. It needs to hit 72 frames because it was originally 90, I think, and then they changed it to 72 because I think some developers were just struggling to make that happen. Because of this whole scenario where there's a lot of developers like, yeah, we've got loads of VR games on Steam already, and they're all PCVR versions. And then suddenly they're like, the PCVR versions, we just can't get them to run very well on standalone hardware. bit of a surprise depending on how good your game looks. And then they're like, well, the only thing we can do is port across the standalone version from the Quest or Pico to Steam Frame, and that costs more money. I think if you put in how powerful Steam Frame is on paper, it comes up with an NVIDIA GTX 1650. I don't even know what that is. I wasn't even in PC with that when that GPU existed, and the CPU is a Core i3. If someone gave me a PC with that GPU and CPU, or they offered it to me, I'd say no thank you, because there's nothing I could do in VR with it. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, whoever's out there saying these incredible things about Steam Frame kind of need to like stop, because what's already going to happen is the Steam Frame is going to be launched at a price that is higher than everyone hopes. Now, I'm sure most of us are thinking $1,000, that's the roof. That's the limit. Don't really want to go any higher. I think it is going to be higher, you know, especially with Qualcomm saying that their prices have gone up. And therefore, maybe Valve are thinking, well, we don't want to release a headset and make a loss. We need to kind of figure out when it's going to kind of plateau these price changes. And I've also heard it's coming mid-August now. I'm kind of thinking to myself, we're going to see a bit of a Steam machine all over again. It's going to come out. It's going to be too expensive. And then one of the negatives, which should never have been a negative anyway, is people saying, well, I can't play my PCVR games directly on a Steam Frame. Like, I think this headset's going to have an uphill battle due to the price, at least until, say, MetaQuest 4 comes out, coming out at like $1,000 or more. And then suddenly, the whole thing changes. But then we don't know whether that next headset is going to be much better than Steam Frame. Either way, there's a lot going on, but I just wanted to let you guys know that this is happening with Blade and Sorcery. It's going on online at the moment, the conversation, and people need to just be realistic. Like, this is a standalone headset. Sure, it's got more RAM, it's got a better chip, but as I just said, basically it's a very low spec PC on your face. Just let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one.